Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS-Inform. Joining us in the studio is State Senator Mark Messmer, and he's been working hard this whole session on bills that he has proposed that have gone through and passed. And we want to kind of wrap up some of the success that Mark Messmer has had in this year's session.
Yep.
Senator, welcome to the show.
Well, great to be here. I had 8 bills that I had filed this year. 2 of them were just kind of placeholder bills for the Builders Association had a bill, the broadband communities had a bill. They said, well, we're working on some things, you know, just get something stuck into the system that if we need to work on it, we can. Okay. And within the first week or two, the one that the construction guys had, we decided it wasn't really something we could pull together, so I let that one die. It was in my committee. I didn't call it for a hearing in my own committee. Okay. And the same thing with the telecommunication industry. They had a broadband community readiness bill. There was some legislation we passed a couple years ago to help communities get ready to extend broadband. I filed a bill, and Sharon Nagel had filed a bill in the House. And she had a little more time to work on it in the first half of session, so she went ahead and moved her bill. I just let my bill set. When it came to the House, or to the Senate in the second half of session, I was the sponsor of that bill, and then we passed it through. But she had gotten approval, worked on it already. It came to the Senate. It wasn't really anything that we needed to modify on it. And what that one did was, if a community is going to have a broadband ready policy, and at some point we hope to have some money to apply to that, because we had a study committee as part of that bill. There's a universal service fee that's part of everybody's phone bill. Mm-hmm. And you know, for decades, maybe as long as there's been phones, there's been unserved phone areas, and we're getting to the point now where pretty much every inch of the state has phone service, and on that universal service fee component, we're going to have a study committee that looks at, is there ways we can apply that to broadband service.
For rural communities is really what's really important.
Unserved.
Okay.
And
yes,
that was in our current broadband ready community policy. It did not require that policy had to be applied to unserved customers. Okay. So some communities that were taking these broadband ready programs and maybe applying for grants and things to get broadband service enhanced, it was overlaying areas that already had it. Or maybe a community, maybe it might have been a municipality, helping pay for broadband service in an area that was also competing with an existing broadband company. Not really where we wanted that to go. So it has to indeed be a policy to apply for funds to be a broadband ready community, has to get service to unserved customers. So that was a plus. And then, do we apply that universal service fee to extending that broadband to unserved customers, moving forward? So, pretty good bill. Worked with, Representative Nagel on that, and that one's done and off to the governor's desk. Had a few other House bills that I sponsored. One that I worked on with Representative Braun on cars that get impounded or towed, and if they have a car loan on them through a credit union or bank, and that car doesn't ever get claimed, it gets auctioned, who gets what percentage of the funds, kind of boring stuff, down in the weeds stuff, but a section of code that was long overdue for some updates, and worked with the towing companies, the storage yards, the banks, the credit unions, and made sure everybody got the bill into a pretty good shape, and that one was finished up about a week ago and off to the governor as well. Some of the bills that I authored, Senate Bill 129, it was some updates to a bill I had worked on last year dealing with on-site septic systems. If you're a commercial customer, not residential customers, in an area that doesn't have normal sewers, public sewers to it, where you have to put an on-site septic, it requires the State Department of Health, who processes those, to get those done in 30 days. They were taking up to 6 months, to do these. or longer. And the local, if you're doing one on a residential application, you just take it to your county health department and they process them. But when you have businesses that apply for them, they had to get ran through the state. Well, as we were preparing that bill last year, we referred to some sections in code that we thought covered the definitions of what a commercial septic system was. Well, when the LSA, the attorneys that helped us draft those bills, did their bill preparation, they referred to the wrong code section.
So you had to clean it up.
Had to clean it up.
Okay.
So encapsulated the definitions much more clearly, and in that, as we were working through the bill through the House and Senate, there were some other issues that came up on extending sewer systems for private developers, and we amended a little bit of language into that bill. Then as a bill was coming through my utility committee that I'm on in the Senate, there was another bill that was really a better, more matching vehicle for that. So I put all of those amendments and worked on to refine them a whole lot more cleanly in House Bill 1519. That bill passed. And so the language that got put into my Senate Bill 129 dealing with that really wasn't in the right spot, wasn't defined just right. I put that in a conference committee, had those sections, pulled back out, and then put it back up for final vote, and didn't have any opposition on that bill in the House or Senate, either the first half or second half of session. So that worked out nicely. Senate Bill 130 has already been signed by the governor. That was the one where the seller could initiate the title transfer. So I went to they call Bill Watch, where you can actually go to the governor's Bill Watch page and see what bills have been signed, where if they've been passed by the House and Senate, when were they put to the governor's desk, when he signed them. So that one was one of the first 4 or 5 bills he signed. So pretty neat on that. Senate Bill 355 was the sex abuse education bill that passed the House and Senate and has been sent to the governor for signature. And when that one gets signed, I want to have a bill signing ceremony with Tammy Lampert from here in town, who works with some of the sex abuse victims through her agency that she works with, and some of the statewide people that really helped organize support for that. They want to come down to the governor's office and do a bill signing ceremony. So we're waiting for the actual date of that to be announced, and then we'll meet in the governor's office and let the folks who've been advocating for this for quite a while have a little bit of a celebration. So that'll be neat. Senate Bill 283 was the pyramid schemes bill, and that passed unanimously in the House and Senate both times both chambers it went through. We did a little bit of tweaking in that when the bill was in the House to clean up some language that, as we moved it from the committee to the floor in the Senate, we did a little bit of adjusting to one of the sections and had to just tweak it a little bit more in the committee on the House side, but it passed unanimously as well and off to the governor's desk for signature. So real good work on all those. Had one bill that really, as the final week wraps up, needed to spend a little time, so not exactly sure on the regional transportation bill. There was an amendment put in by a House member in Transportation Committee that I really didn't want in there, so have to work on that this final week to see where that's going to wrap up.
Now, when the governor signs your bills, do you get the pen?
You do. If you request a bill signing ceremony, you do get a pen. I've got one from Mitch Daniels that I had a bill signing ceremony with him when he was governor, and it's the pen he actually signs it with, and it's got his name on it, and I've got that. I should probably frame it or something, sure. But it's sitting in a drawer. Probably dried out by now. Now,
what we want to point out is, whilst the session may have ended for this year, your work doesn't stop. You keep going. I mean, you may have a little break where you can maybe a day or two and breathe.
We'll take a little time to breathe. It's kind of like the end of a semester, or when you're in school. Mm-hmm. When you're done, you just want to get away from it for a little bit. But I've already got things, some issues that didn't get resolved this year. Planning on what to bring back next year and how to make adjustments, and bills that ideas that came up during session that were really too late to do anything about this year. Planning for what issues to pull together for next year.
And you work over the summer?
We do. During May and June, there's not a lot that happens at the State House. But in June, they'll assign, summer study committees, and they'll pick 20, 25 issues, that there's a lot of requests that come in to study issues over the summer. Those committee announcements will be made in June, and then July, August, September, October is when those study committees will meet. One of the issues I know that'll get some long overdue attention is just a general overview and rewriting of the alcohol codes, because we had some issues come up this year with the Rickers convenience stores and how they were using some restaurant language to kind of skirt around, the alcohol regulations, and so it's really some of the statutes haven't been changed in 75 years, and some of them are really, and the whole code section, it's been amended so many times that it's really hard for anybody to follow. Just an overall general, and it may take more than a year to do that. I mean, if it would take a lot of work, by some pretty dedicated, staff folks and House and Senate leadership and committee chairmen, and to work on just a general overview rewrite of the alcohol code, and that's one that coming out of this, I think House and Senate leadership decided we've been talking about doing this for a long time, and it's probably overdue. So there was a pretty heavy commitment from the Speaker and the President of the Senate to do that, and I'd like to be a part of that. I've been on public policy for all the time I've been at the State House, and it's interesting to work on that. So, and I've done a lot of farm winery legislation over the years, working with the farm winery groups to help get that that section of the code and a little more workable for them. So we'll see how that goes, but those will, and even if an issue doesn't get assigned to a summer study committee, it doesn't mean you can't pull together 3 or 4 legislators and talk to different interest groups along the way and work on issues yourself. And a study committee doesn't necessarily guarantee that issue is going to get a bill drafted and a law enacted. It just gives a bigger group of people more time to take more public input, and it helps in the process of crafting a bill. But even coming out of a study committee, if you're on that committee and something that pops up and if the committee makes a recommendation, somebody still has to grab that idea, go to legislative services and then craft a bill, because they're never. I've never been on one yet where they actually took a recommendation and then an actual bill draft was recommended. It's usually more conceptual, kind of covers the general overview of what you want to try to get done, but somebody has to take it and take ownership of it and work it. So there'll be issues that, whether they're study committees or not, that that I'll be working on during the off season.
Okay. There is really no off season.
No off
All
season.
Right. Well, Senator, thank you very much for
you're
coming
welcome.
in.
My pleasure.
We certainly appreciate State Senator Mark Messmer joining us here on WJTS-Inform, where local people watching local people.